Am I live? Is it going? Hi everyone, Robert, blindfoldedsite.com. I wanted to talk about meditation today and about the body's electricity, ways that we can heal cancer, essentially. So cancer, here's a crazy thing that I just learned last night. So pH is actually the voltage in water. And when you have, let me go to my notes here. This is crazy stuff. I was watching this lecture by Dr. Tennant, and so the pH describes the voltage in a liquid, whether the liquid is giving electrons or whether it's taking electrons. Things like cancer end up happening when your body's liquid ends up just taking way too many electrons. And then cancer happens because it really impedes the cell's ability for cellular respiration, and then your cell can't get oxygen, and then the stem cells are activated. They freak out and they go running towards the closest blood source, and they start pooling up all the blood, and in essentially like a placenta, which is what all tumors are. It's like a placenta. And so what cancer comes from is having low voltage, which leads to low oxygen, which leads to cancer. It's like all cancer happens at positive 30 millivolts, which means that the liquid is stealing electrons from the cells. And when the cells, they each have like their own battery. So when the cells run out of juice, they run out of battery, they can no longer communicate, they don't have their electromagnetic field around them, so they end up clumping together, and they just perform super poorly. There's different energy reproduction things. It's like taking a 38 mile per hour gallon gas car and then reducing it to like 2 miles per gallon, which is what happens when our body loses its voltage. It loses its ability to even function properly. It's interesting because a lot of these, there's like 4 different battery packs or centers in your body. Like your muscles are piezoelectric. So it's literally, you recharge your body by moving. Like every time you move and you stretch your muscles, you're generating electrons and you're recharging your body. Because we're big organic computers, and if one system fails or a battery's not holding a charge, then it ends up leading to chronic illnesses, to the inability to heal. Things like if you smash your thumb, what happens is normally cells operate at negative 20 to negative 25 millivolts. If you smash your thumb and you destroy a bunch of cells in there, your thumb's going to start expanding. It's going to send all the nutrients that you need to your thumb so that it's able to heal. You know, it drops all the materials off. And then it changes the voltage to negative 50 millivolts, so it's giving a bunch of electrons and giving the energy to heal your thumb. If you can't get to that negative 50 millivolts area, then your thumb will never heal. It will literally just stay damaged for like a really long time, and this leads to chronic illnesses because you have a lack of voltage, a lack of electricity. There's a few ways, 4 different ways that we can create electricity, or that it's stored, different battery places, I guess. So your muscles hold and store and generate electricity. The cell membrane of each cell acts like a capacitor, so this is also another battery, little battery for each and every cell. Your mitochondria, through cellular respiration, ends up creating ATP, which is like storing up energy as batteries. It's like, they're like a bunch of mini batteries or tiny springs you just compress with electrons. And then your DNA, this one's kind of crazy. Your DNA, the way that it's like coiled, if you look at it straight coming in, it's like got the golden mean ratio. And what happens is with specific geometry, energy ends up, it creates like a scalar energy effect, and there's like an implosion of energy, and it's generated electricity through this scalar wave. And a scalar, it's this whole thing with the golden mean and platonic solids, which create scalar implosion. Pretty crazy stuff. Another form of energy generation. So there are, let's talk about emotions. Emotions are also electromagnetic fields. So like when we have an emotion and it gets stuck in an area, you're literally actually creating an electromagnetic field. They found with there's a bunch of different companies that worked with erasing emotions, being able to turn off emotions. Like some of these companies are EFT, Psych K, there's Emotion Code, there's Psychosomatic Energetics, there's Bach Flowers, there's Bit Field Tuning. Now most of these methods, the subject imagines going through the emotional event, and then they pass a large electromagnetic field over the person, and that ends up canceling out the emotion. So emotions are electromagnetic fields, and we can cancel them out. There's this interesting thing with physics, or if you have a small magnet and you have an even larger magnet on top of it, the small magnet will end up taking up the properties of the large magnet. So it'll lose its own individuality, and it'll adopt the magnetic field of the larger magnet. What's interesting is when our bodies start losing their electricity, they start losing their voltage, and it starts dropping to a low enough point, the polarity will actually switch. So like a magnet, if you take away all the voltage or whatever, you can switch the polarity going from negative millivolts, which when it's negative millivolts, that means that it's giving electrons to the, so this is alkaline. When things are alkaline, the liquid is giving more electrons to the stuff in the liquid than it's taking from them. And when it's acidic, that liquid is stealing all of the electrons from the stuff in them. So that's something that we never even consider, is that all cancer happens at positive 30 millivolts. It's literally when your body is unable to generate the electricity that it needs. Your body's too acidic, and it's stealing all of the electrons from the cells. They can't properly function. They can't charge. They can't communicate. It's like the medicine of the future is going to be almost targeting specific areas. And it's crazy because all these things end up correlating with Chinese meridians, and you know, when they're doing like the Qigong, and there's like, oh, there's certain lines that they put acupuncture points into. They found these actually correlate with, like, it's called your muscular fascia, which ends up being like a battery or the wiring throughout your whole body. It kind of connects everything. And they can put a needle in to a specific point, and it ends up and send energy through it, literal electricity through it, and you can recharge certain parts of the body, which is what a lot of future medicine is going to be. They're going to be like, oh, you've got a problem with your, I don't know. It's interesting because a lot of these things start with teeth, because like a lot of people don't realize that teeth are more connected with our whole system than we know. Like there's certain energy pathways, and it's like our whole body is it's a circuit, it's a machine. And when you break the wiring or you override a circuit, a whole section shuts down. And there's chronic illness. Like we are electrical beings, we're electric beings. And a lot of stuff, like there's this guy who's curing cancer over, other notes I can't find. I'll try to do it from memory. There's this guy, Robert Young, who's got the Young Center over in California, and he is essentially doing the same thing. He's realizing that you take measurements of the body, you try to see what the voltage is, because when you notice that the cells are low voltage, they perform poorly, and then you end up leading to a more acidic body, which leads to lack of metabolism, lack of oxygen. You end up producing, your stem cells turn on and they produce cancer. And they're trying to like store up as much blood and all this other stuff because they're not getting the oxygen or energy that they need. So when people do like medical Qigong, and they're literally actually sending electricity from one person to the next person and recharging that person. Your teeth, I didn't mention, they're like breakers. Like if the circuit gets they all pass through your teeth, and when we end up getting like a cavity or something, it ends up like shutting off that whole circuit, And there's this whole correlation with like wisdom teeth. Like 60% of the time, you don't even have to take out the wisdom teeth. It's actually like disrupting a certain circuit that's connected to like your adrenal glands and stuff. So like the kid ends up having no ability to like manage their emotions after they get their wisdom teeth taken out. And it's like, yeah, you're disrupting the circuits. Like we're electrical beings. And there are 6 loops of, lines and meridians that the Chinese are very familiar with. It's kind of interesting because they're all wired exactly how you would wire normal stuff, how you would wire actual electronics. A lot of it's through like Tesla resonating circuits, which is like a capacitor and a coiled wire in parallel. Now, certain organs are always wired together, so they're always going to communicate back and forth with each other. The lung and the large intestine are wired together, the heart and the small intestine, the spleen and the pancreas, and the stomach. The kidney is with the bladder, and the liver is wired with the gallbladder. And they communicate with each other. Each circuit goes through specific teeth. And when you get infections in the teeth, it in effect lowers the circuits until the teeth rotting out. It's like looking at your car battery when you start getting like corrosion on the top of the battery. And eventually, if that corrosion gets too far, it's going to like cut the whole circuit and it's going to corrode the wiring outside of it, and you're going to have a full system, failure of that specific circuit, and that specific battery will no longer be able to charge. And then if you can't charge that battery, then all these other systems start getting affected. He was doing this thing where he found like 95% of cancer, all the patients had like a root canal or an infected bone where the root canal had taken place, which is interesting. I mean, this guy, Dr. Tennant's, is, I think he's an eye doctor by trade, but he ends up doing he got really into the whole body's electrical system and the circuitry of the body. He's like an eye surgeon or something, but you can't really talk about this stuff. You can only, when you're like a doctor and you're licensed, you can only talk about like pharmaceuticals and therapy, and they hardly even talk about diet, but talking about, generating electricity or using like scalar technology or actually charging certain parts of someone's body seems kind of weird. But it's like, yeah, our bodies are incredibly good at healing themselves, and if they can't heal themselves, then there's some other problem going on. Like every single one of us has Lyme disease. Like all of us have Lyme disease. But it's our ability, same with cancer, but it's our ability to deal with this, it's our immune system's ability to actually combat it that determines whether we get Lyme disease or not, which in reality we all have it. There's like trillions of tiny little bugs or things that don't necessarily have cell walls, but they're like infecting our body. And when we start getting into an acidic state, they start turning on and inflammation happens and all this other stuff. And it's interesting because cancer cells die when you bring the body into an alkaline state. Between pH of 7.8 and 8.8, cancer cells end up just completely dying. So there's a random thing on cancer and stuff. There's so all cancer occurs at positive 30 millivolts when the pH is at a state where electrons are stolen from the cells. So one way we can deal with cancer is by actually being active and moving, because our muscles generate electricity. Emotions are very important because emotions, as we mentioned before, are electromagnetic fields. They're measurable. They can get actually stuck in certain organs and mess up the flow of electricity, the flow of voltage through the body. So it's like connecting these yoga things with like modern day science, where it's like legitimately readable by machines, where you can see the emotions trapped somewhere in someone's body and it's affecting their circuitry. One way you can measure all of these circuits is through acupuncture. All the acupuncture points are generally like stacks of batteries, like they stick the needle like right where the battery pack is, essentially. So each part of the body has its own battery pack in order to operate and function properly. And when they take a little ohm meter, I think it's called the Meads. Wait, no, that was a microscope. But you take an ohm meter and you stick it on, an acupuncture needle point, and you can literally measure the voltage. And you can see this circuit is super low. This circuit is not working. This, the body is not going to function as well as it should. So we're electric beings, and healing of the future is going to be electric-based rather than pharmaceutical-based. Because most of the time we can actually heal ourselves. We just need the proper voltage, we need the proper nutrients, and that's basically it. Like, exercise is great, but that's kind of what generates a lot of the voltage. So if you don't have, if your voltage is getting low, you're actually going to get lethargic, and you're going to get sleepy, and you're going to get depressed and stuff. And if you have a higher voltage in your body, you're going to heal way faster, you're going to function way better, your brain is you're going to remember things, you're going to just know stuff better. We're electric beings, so it makes sense that if you can supply us with more legitimate, actual electricity, that we will operate better. So a lot of chronic illness comes from a lack of voltage. Cancer is a huge one. They were doing stuff at the Young Center I mentioned, where they had stage 1, 2, and 3 cancers, and 91% of them, out of 320 people, 91% of them completely cured. Stage 1, 2, and 3 cancers, completely cured. And then stage 4 was 81% cure rate, which is incredible. All these people were doing is they're giving themselves salt, but not just iodized salt, which has no minerals, but pink Himalayan salt or black salt, which has higher minerals and higher, Himalayan pink salt has 84 minerals or something. The black salt has 100 and something. But these are super important because we are electric beings, and if we don't have those minerals, if we don't have the conductivity, then we end up in more of an acidic state. That's one thing that they were able to see, because there's the largest organ of our body holds 60% of our fluids, and it's often ignored. It's the interstitium, I believe whatever. But it, I don't have all my notes, there's too many. But it will determine your health. You can actually look at this and see this person's going to develop cancer down the road, because you can see it in their okay, let me just pull up the notes here. But it's crazy, yeah, just adding things like salt, avoiding iodized salt, but actually getting the salt that gives you minerals, because salt is conductive. Even things like breath work is really helpful, when you do the Wim Hof breathing, 30 big breaths, and then you exhale and you hold for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You change the pH in your body, which means you're changing the voltage in your body, because voltage is pH, which who'd have, I didn't realize that. That's so cool. But yeah, it's plus 300 millivolts, which is an electron stealer, is a 0 pH. Minus 300 millivolts, which is an electron giver, is 14 pH, and then neutral is a pH of 7, which doesn't give or take any electrons. So the pH is the voltage in a liquid. I also wanted to talk about meditation. While I've got you here, I was going to do a quick little video on the real purpose of meditation, why we meditate. For those who have attained epic abilities, they know that meditation is a very vital tool. For other people, they don't really understand why should I even meditate? What's the purpose? And meditating is gaining more and more attention in neuroscientific research, and it's becoming popular with many words like mindfulness. Just like yoga, meditation is deeper than what is perceived in the West. In reality, there are two things that make up all existence: spirit and matter, which they're actually the same thing, because matter is, even if you look at the deepest levels of the world, electrons and protons, they're actually just dense energy fields. So everything is energy. Nothing is actually physical. But it goes deeper. I mean, when our eyes are open, we live entirely in the physical world, focusing on its laws and its forces. And beneath the waters of the physical world, where we close our eyes, we enter into the spirit. Everything that comes into form first comes from visualization in the spirit world. All energy is information condensed into will. Like everything is essentially information willed to be what it is. It's information that's condensed. So our minds are like a wild elephant running around without our control. And the first step is gaining control in your life for any reason is to gain control of your mind. We make our own decisions, and we must not be guided by impulse or rash thinking. When you become a master of your mind, you can literally master anything, even attain enlightenment. Meditation in yoga is for connecting with the source of all things. It's for self-realization. It's for dismantling the ego. Meditation is for unlocking siddhis and getting closer to source. Through meditation, we can heal our bodies, unblock our sixth sense. We can gather energy and communicate telepathically. We can leave our bodies and soar through space in astral form. We're so much more than we believe, and for many, the first step to realizing this comes through meditation. Now, the first step to meditation, what do you even do? Is you start. The first step is meditating. In meditating, is to build your ability to focus and concentrate. So many people growing up never learned how to properly concentrate and focus. We hardly pay attention to the things that we're doing, and we make mistakes and try to multitask. This leads to more energy use, often with lower success rates, and it's harder for us to multitask. We can't truly focus on two things at once. Our attention only switches from one thing to another and then back to the other and back and forth, leaving larger room for error. Now, a great example of this is if you were to take a Post-it with a dot on it and place it on a wall, and you were to attempt to stare at this Post-it for as long as you can, you'll find how quickly we will distract ourselves from our original objective. Improving your focus corresponds with physical changes in the brain. So when people meditate simply on focus and the feeling of their breath entering and leaving through the rims of their nostrils or their belly expanding and contracting, they're building their ability to focus by constantly bringing their attention back to their breath and letting thoughts go, emptying the mind. This is what people call mindfulness, and it does help in many areas. By lowering the chatter in the brain and building control over your will, the prefrontal cortex becomes more active when we can bring ourselves back into the now, not thinking of the past or the future. By doing this, we're making new neural pathways and training old ones to allow us better performance with less energy. So our intuition and our response time will improve, as well as our memory and our concentration. The hippocampus also brings to gain more control over what's called the default mode network. So this is how we can begin to gain more control over areas of the brain that are active when we are at rest. So our brains have high neuroplasticity, which means that they're changing all the time, whether we do it on purpose or not. Much of the time this is happening without our knowledge. For example, when we're raising children, it's almost more important to show them the right thing to do rather than telling them. We're very empathetic, and because of our mirror neurons, we reflect the emotions and the situations we encounter in life. This concept is also very important for children around ages 7 and 8, because this is where they start building, where they begin building their views of the world and their place in it. Young children under the ages of 12 are often in theta and delta brainwaves. Theta is like the programming state of consciousness, where we can speak directly to the subconscious without any mental barriers to fact check or to question the incoming information. We can also heal brain damage with meditation. A large percent of people who come back from war or are in prison or even in the NFL with anger issues may have had a neurological issue that they are unaware of. The good news is that our brains can be healed due to their high neuroplasticity. We can truly rehabilitate people in prison, but we don't. Meditation and compassion actually change the structure of the brain itself. Brain damage can be reversed on a Brain Smart program, as mentioned by Daniel Amen in his TED Talk. This is also related to things like ADHD. We can train people to learn how to focus and improve their lives in nearly every way. Many of these things seem invisible, but with good spectral imaging of the brain, we can see much more clearly. Daniel Amen made a good point when he said that the psychology is the only medical profession that does not actually look at the organ in question when making a diagnosis. And that's kind of nuts. So let's talk about the different brainwaves and brain states that we're in. We have several different brainwave states that we all experience in our lives. The first one is delta, which is the lowest frequency with the highest amplitude, which is between 0.5 hertz and 4 hertz. This state is normally associated with sleeping and healing. This is where things like our autonomic nerve system shine. When we are in deep states of delta, sleep is often dreamless and our neurons are shutting off through the body. From gamma aminobutyric, we're going to just call it GABA. It's a gamma aminobutyric acid. This state is not limited to dreamless sleep, but it's also been a path to gamma brainwaves. And reportedly, by Dr. Joe Dispenza's findings, even transcendental or religious experiences can happen through delta. You meditate, you go into delta, you maintain that delta until you start getting essentially the dreamlike experience, but you're awake, and then your brain is functioning much higher than it normally would. And if you can maintain these states, then you can function much higher outside of sleep. You can have a much more vivid imagination, you can process more information, all this good stuff. So next we have theta. So we have theta brainwaves moving up in frequency and lower and down in amplitude. Theta is generally between 5 hertz and 8 hertz, or cycles per second. Theta is known as a drowsy state where you can access your subconscious and deep memories that you think you've forgotten. Theta is where true hypnosis takes place. You can program your subconscious with ideas and perceptions here. You can overcome fears and anxieties. One thing we should be aware of is that if it's a battle of ideas between our subconscious and our conscious mind, the subconscious will always win. So this state is also a state that one would be in for things like a shamanic journey. In this brainwave state, we also find the Schumann resonance. This can also change depending on solar radiation or having geomagnetic. This can also change depending on solar radiation having geomagnetic effects on the Earth. This resonance and frequency, this resonance and frequency are where a person can tune into the Earth and everything on it, as you would tune into a radio. Most of the realities of remote viewing and remote influencing are found to be performed at this level. This is also why when there are geomagnetic storms or solar flares, this can disrupt a person's ability to remote view. Theta is where visualization can also become much more vivid and detailed. You can actually start seeing images, colors. It's like you literally start holding up a photograph inside your brain. It's no longer black on black. And this is a great state that we want to practice, and we can change our brainwave states at will, and we really want to get into good at switching to theta, because at times that can take like even just an hour to get into alpha if someone doesn't meditate. So getting down to theta can be difficult. But then again, other people, right when you're going to sleep, it can only take like 10 minutes and then you're like seeing stuff, you know? So alpha is the next brainwave state. This is of inspiration and imagination. This state is generally found between 8 hertz and 13 hertz. When you're watching a movie or listening to music, you're often in alpha. Alpha is the state where light hypnosis may be performed, as well as early states of meditation. Alpha is one of the states where we use in extrasensory perception abilities and the feeling of subtle energies such as chi. And then it's also a really creative state. So then we have beta moving up in frequency, lower in amplitude. Beta brainwaves are between 14 hertz and 30 to 39 hertz. These are associated with normal daily functions and are found when we are doing things like working. This is when we're fully alert and fully aware. And then gamma. This is the big one. Stepping up one more level, we begin to get into the superconscious. Gamma brainwaves are measured at levels above 40 hertz. Gamma brainwaves occur in people when they have done something like bitten into an orange or come up with a solution to a difficult problem. Gamma brainwaves are also recorded when people perform telekinesis. Astonishingly, most people do not reach the levels of coherence and synchronicity that Tibetan monks achieve. When first studying brainwaves, the classification of gamma didn't become a thing until Olympic-level meditators began getting brain scans. These were people who had done over 62,000 lifetime hours of meditation. And the first thing they noticed was how different their brainwaves were from ours. These people just lived through their normal day in gamma brainwaves. And even more interestingly, when these meditators focused on compassion, their gamma brainwaves would jump up 700 to 800%. And this suggests that there's a higher state of consciousness that most of us are not aware of, nor do we ever really achieve. After asking these monks what the state feels like, they describe it as being spacious and open and ready for anything. This is where you can start avoiding things like mistakes. You can just start being like super aware, super conscious of things. Often scientists didn't even have the proper EEG devices to measure the full extent and range of the high-level meditators. Majority of these were Tibetan monks. And it's nuts because there is higher levels of brain function and perception that most of us are unaware of. And they're clearly measurable on devices, but in order to experience it, you have to do it yourself. So let's talk about influencing gene expression. Meditation can have profound effects on the body. We gain more control over our minds and our body. We can also influence gene expression. There are very interesting things that have been done with Evelyn at Seeing Without Eyes. They have found that you can do things like influence stem cells for growing new teeth, for example. We see that negative emotions affect stress and can degrade the body's functions. We often overlook the fact that positive emotions have positive effects as well. Much of our gene expression comes from our interaction with the environment, which the body perceives through emotions and feelings. So by doing things like meditating on elevated emotions, like compassion, we can activate many of these latent biological functions. You can promote healing in the body with thought and emotion. With practice, we gain more control over our amygdala and rein in this elephant of a mind that we have. We can master stress and anxiety this way. Breathwork is another fantastic tool that we can use in conjunction with meditation that allows us to accomplish some of these same goals. When meditation comes increased levels of melatonin, which is a strong antioxidant, with meditation comes increased levels of melatonin, which is a strong antioxidant and helps in preventing aging. Our DNA also gains more protection as the length of our telomeres grow, leading to longevity. This has a lot to do with how our immune cells age as well. In the long run, many of us lose brain cells as we age, but we can learn to grow them through meditation. One Harvard study found that after 8 weeks of meditation, the subjects had grown more neurons, increased the size of their gray matter in their brains, and also increased the weight of their brains themselves. So the physical structures changed through meditation, and operations can become more efficient. Not only that, but you can end up improving the strength and the amplitude of your brain waves. And then one will go down into a theta brainwave state and stay awake, allowing the body to come into harmony, and the brain begins to produce more energy at higher wavelengths. So the CIA has done a lot of research on this. The CIA researched astral projection and transcendental meditation. They found some very interesting things. in the gateway process. They utilize three main forms of practice: hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation. So hypnosis. Through hypnosis, they found that they were able to access the sensory motor cortex, the pleasure centers, and the lower cerebral sections of the right side of the brain. They were able to speak directly to the right side of the brain, which controls imagination and feelings, and it's the more spiritual side of the brain. Without the left side of the brain, the analytical, logical, language side, getting in or interceding in the way. This was primarily used for quicker progress through the program by removing fears and establishing the possible. Also, by giving the listener enhanced confidence, concentration, and focus. So those are some of the benefits you can get from hypnosis. Remove fears, more confidence, more focus. They did this a lot in the CIA, and then they also utilized biofeedback. Then there's biofeedback, which uses both sides of the brain together to achieve the desired results, with the practitioner able to see and correct mistakes. This is especially helpful when a meditator can see their brainwaves or hear a noise, letting them know where they are in their meditation, what brainwave they're actually at. Biofeedback can help strengthen neurological pathways that allow us to take conscious control over unconscious actions. For example, pain can be blocked. It can be blocked out, healing can be enhanced. This is very helpful with new meditators and greatly improves their advancement. Then we can talk about transcendental meditation and what the CIA has found with that. Finally, we have transcendental meditation, which ignores the left side of the brain so that we can interact with the right. Things like mantras are repeated until the left side of the brain gets bored and the right side of the brain can take over. The CIA studied transcendental meditation in terms of Kundalini awakenings. They were able to measure the movement of energy through what is known in the East as the microcosmic or macrocosmic orbit of Chi. This was seen when the energy was pulled up the spine to the head, producing acoustical waves that were conducted in the subject's gray matter of the brain. These waves were from the heart and formed a rhythm called the bifurcation echo. This echo is like a pressure wave that moves up and down the body like a slinky wave bouncing from one end to another. And when we meditate, and we can get our body in tune with this echo, it reverberates with the heartbeats in a smooth rhythm, and the body works in harmony like a tuned instrument. This echo is audible and heard up to 3 times louder than the normal heartbeat. Now, the raising of the Kundalini is something that takes around 5 years of meditation and practice. It's something that's even highly regarded among yogis in India. The CIA found that these energy movements could be produced in people using vibrations or frequencies. It was noted that with binaural beats, Kundalini awakenings could be achieved sooner than without. So people with sensitive nervous systems were also susceptible to random Kundalini awakenings due to mechanical or auditory vibrations for protracted periods between 4 to 7 hertz. This, for example, could be from an air conditioner or a certain part of the road and the speed, creating just the right vibrations. Someone would have a spontaneous Kundalini, awakening. They'd be... Weird stuff, interesting stuff. Binaural beats are something that is crazy and that we should all be aware of. Binaural beats were discovered by the Monroe Institute as a means to get the right and the left hemispheres to synchronize. They called their new sound technology hemisync. This utilizes 2 different frequencies played in each ear. This utilizes 2 different frequencies played in each ear. One frequency, for example, would be 100 hertz in the right ear and 108 hertz in the left ear. Even though there are 2 separate oscillations of sounds coming in your ears, your brain will take the 2 and create a third one that's not actually there, and you'll end up hearing like 104 hertz. So you'll get a 4 hertz difference, and your brain is going to end up wanting to tune to this 4 hertz that it's creating. your brain has to actively have the left and the right hemispheres sync up to produce what you hear. This is how they were able to induce a resonant frequency at such low tones as 4 hertz and still be registered by our hearing. The brain then tries to match up with whatever frequency it's perceiving, which allows sound to help bring us through different states of consciousness. One of the main goals of the Gateway Project was to bring subjects down into a relaxed state around the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, for astral projection and for remote viewing. There are different levels mentioned in the Monroe Project, different levels of attainment and advancement. These levels progress up in what's called focuses. So advanced techniques begin to rise, like traveling to the past, which is after focus 10, moving up to focus 21, which is looking into the future, something that's a little more challenging because the future can always change. I think they're actually finding out that the past can change too. Really crazy stuff. Anyway, advanced techniques to begin rise, focus 10, 21. They say that only 4% of those who train make it past focus 15. Progression through these focuses was directly linked to the time that people put in. Here's an idea of what some of this process looks like. This is from declassified documents made available due to the Freedom of Information Act. So the Gateway process. The Gateway process was for astral projection and advanced energy states. They would begin by using hemisync tapes. They would then add strong REM sleep frequencies to keep the person from falling asleep. They would provide hypnosis for easier and deeper states of meditation. They use hypnosis for more states of focus and concentration to progress rapidly through the next exercises. They would repeat steps A through C with the suggestion that an outer body movement will be acquired and remembered even after the sleep ends. Repeat E, which is repeat A to C. Okay. I can't really start that over. It's on live. So we're just going to keep going. So then F, repeat E to control out-of-body movements even when after REM sleep ends. So they use these hemisync tapes to get people down into theta for hypnosis. Then they give them suggestions like, you're going to do an out-of-body experience, you're going to remember it. And then they, repeat these steps to give other suggestions. You're going to be able to control your out-of-body movement even after the REM sleep ends. And then they do step G, which is they encourage the pursuit of all self-knowledge and remove any blockages to the process. Step H, be prepared to encounter intelligent forces. Step I, encourage advanced participants to build energy fields for advances in attainment to help others learn and assist them. Which is interesting, because that's relating to morphic field theory, which is more than a theory at this point. There's several studies they did where they, let's say they have a bunch of rats in Berlin, and these rats, they, just let's say 5 of them, and they'd go through this maze, and they, a couple days they're learning the maze and they're figuring it out, and then they take rats of the same breed, this is important, same breed, and they would do the same test with different rats over in England or something. And the rats would essentially pick up where the other ones left off. They had other interesting studies where they did stuff with monkeys, where they would throw food, these monkeys would be on a beach or something, they'd throw the food onto the beach, and it'd get all sandy, and the first generation would just eat the sandy food. And they would have children, and the children of the monkeys were like, look, maybe I can wash the food off. And they started washing the food off. And eventually, the younger generation grew up, and they passed that information to their kids. And it just kind of clicked. And then all of a sudden, monkeys on a bunch of other islands started performing the same behaviors where they hadn't done before. And this brings us even more to humans and ancestral knowledge. You can pass information on through your genetics. You can have ancestral memories from other generations that can pass on to you. Crazy stuff. So let's talk about DMT next. Will this be available after the live stream? Oh yeah, I'll definitely post this. I know I'm just throwing information out there. I'm out of storage space, but hopefully Facebook saves this. I've never done a live before, so I don't know. I can also show you guys my van, even though you don't know that I have a van yet, because my vlog hasn't said that. Let's talk about DMT, which is a spirit molecule. I mean, it's highly regarded. It's, you know, what's in ayahuasca when people go to the retreats in South America and they drink, you know, something and have a trippy experience for like 4 or 5 hours. And everything is consciousness, so you're absolutely going to end up either dealing with your own internal stuff, or you're going to, you know, deal with something outside of you. But in reality, all points in space and time are one. We are all one. Anyway, let's talk about how to produce DMT. So meditation is also vital for developing blindfolded sight and achieving higher states of focus and energy output. Now, I teach blindfolded sight, where you literally blind people, teach them how to get through courses and, you know, separate cards and do all this other stuff, which is great because you're unlocking your internal screen that we mentioned that turns on around theta. And if you can change your brainwaves so you can choose to bring that screen and turn it on at any point in time, not only when you're like about to fall asleep and daydreaming, but even when you're like, I want to know some information, let me see what I see. Cool stuff. But okay, so meditation is a vital tool for developing blindfolded sight and achieving higher states of focus and energy output. This is how we expand our consciousness and allow for the formation of other abilities. This is how you open your third eye. When we have our eyes closed, we can begin to see color and lights through the production of DMT in your pineal gland. We must go through the darkness to see the light. Mantak Chia tells us about how in the Tao, as a practice, they would put people into a completely dark room for a week. And this allows our brains to produce more and more melatonin, which then converts to 5-MeO-DMT after the first or second day. The melatonin levels slowly increase up from 5 milligrams up until they reach around 25 milligrams when DMT begins to be produced. Mantak tells us about on the second or third day, the levels are getting so high that the people will, in the dark, will begin seeing their past lives, and their spirit will want to leave their bodies. This is how they develop their astral projection abilities, as well as awakening their sixth sense. I've also heard several people tell me about how native tribes who would take their children and raise them for a short period of time in complete darkness of a cave to develop their sixth sense. I've not personally found any references to this, but I've had multiple people tell me about it, and I just haven't found it through Google. So it does make perfect sense, though. To begin to produce DMT, we must meditate, or simply spend enough time in the pitch black darkness. This similar method is also referenced by Sadhguru, who mentioned that to activate your third eye, that one needs to sit at least for 36 hours of meditation. Unfortunately, with age, our melatonin levels tend to drop, so these states are often more easily attained by younger generations. Meditation is so much more powerful than we realize. Not only does it unlock our superconscious states and supernatural abilities with extrasensory perception, but it also helps us in all aspects. Meditation's been shown to reduce cancer growth, mitigates radiation from chemotherapy, it increases your body's natural killer cells and protects your DNA. It reduces fat content in the body and can help with diabetes. It's shown to help in producing neuroprotective hormones that can help with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. It also reduces the damage of brain injuries. Now, our world is full of random aspects that are constantly being influenced by our minds and energy. This is seen in binary quantum entanglement, when we use our attention to affect our intention to affect a random number generator, which and even things like the pH in water or even the flow of the wind. You may have noticed your interconnection with the world around you through things like the radio or TV, answering questions that come across your mind or that you say out loud. Your aura interacts with the world around us at a deeper level than most of us can see. So let's talk about your aura. So your electromagnetic field, produced by the heart, grows or shrinks depending on your emotional state. We can strengthen and widen our electromagnetic field through things like compassion meditation. This field is also seen as a field of protection by high-level yogis. A larger field, the larger the field, the greater the protection. Our fields interact with each other's, whether we know it or not. You see this when couples are close together. Their heartbeats will actually sync up. This is where we can get a feeling that someone is behind us or that someone is looking at us. It's also been shown that you can put two people in a separate room and have them be unaware that the other person is there, but through the wall, their auras will start interacting, their electromagnetic fields will start interacting and cause physiological changes in the subjects. So when a person is sad, their field may only stretch about 3 feet around them. When a person is happy, their field can stretch up to 20 feet around them, or even more, which affects everyone who comes in contact with their field. You can literally radiate happiness just by being there and being happy. You actually change other people's physiological, different aspects of their body. This can also be related to the chakra system. They're not chakras, they're chakras. Showing us how energy and this can also be related to the chakra system, showing us how energy and strength and resilience comes from love and conviction. This is also why many masters avoid crowds and lots of people in their fields, which would slowly be drained simply by being around those who are leaking or constantly losing energy. There's always an osmosis effect that happens. Osmosis is in everything. Everything is constantly trying to come into balance. So if you have someone that's very high voltage, very high electricity and energy, and someone that's like leaking, constantly needing energy, they're going to absorb energy from one or the other. It's like it's a literal energy vampire, and this will be readable. It probably is already readable to some degree. But there's my talk on meditation. Very important stuff, very powerful stuff. Changing your brainwaves, healing brain damage. We talked about voltage and electricity. You can increase your brainwave strength and amplitude. We talked about curing cancer. We talked about just a lot of chronic illnesses coming from a body's low voltage. We're electrical beings. We have circuitry. And if you disrupt that circuitry, even just like a scar or a cut on your arm or something, it actually affects a lot more than just your arm. Yeah, there's my first live video. I guess let's keep it going. I don't know. I'm at my mom's right now because came down from Utah. I went to that MPUSA school, which they wanted to charge me a lot, and they wanted me to sign non-disclosure agreements and non-competition clause, but I couldn't do that because I've got to teach all you guys, and we've got to change the world together, because I can't just learn superpowers on my own and keep them to myself. We gotta share this shit. This is insane. Anyway, today it's just been on meditation, but I have other talks on intuition and stuff. This is my van. I'm gonna sell this car so I can afford the registration on this one. I got it used, and then broke down. I got a couple things fixed on it, and now I've got like a $2,000 registration that I've got to somehow pay for. Which is fine, actually. It shouldn't be an issue. It'll just take, you know, a little bit of time, like everything. Yeah. Cool property. This is my parents. My mom and Kevin. And yeah, good stuff. Thanks for tuning in. I wish you all the best. Love and blessings. You have a wonderful day.